Areas of the United States have recently experienced torrential rain that caused devastating and deadly flooding. The nation watched in horror as over 100 people were swept to their deaths in Kerr County, Texas, including many children attending Camp Mystic on the Guadalupe River. While Kerr County is an extreme example of what can happen when an area is prone to flooding, nearly 8 million homes and other structures exist in special flood hazard areas, as designated by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. While nothing can prevent loss of life in a natural disaster, such as a massive flood, there are insurance options available to protect the property you own or rent. However, if you assume your regular homeowners or renters insurance policy will cover flood-related damage to your home or personal belongings, you'll be disappointed. Floods are the most common and costly natural disaster in the United States. Unfortunately, a lack of flood insurance is the most significant insurance gap or vulnerability that Americans have. This podcast will review what flood insurance is, who needs it, and how to purchase a policy. Welcome back to episode 949 of Money Girl. I really appreciate you being here. I'm Laura Adams, an award-winning author, on-camera spokesperson, money speaker, and founder of The Money Stack. That's my Substack newsletter. When you subscribe, you'll automatically receive my Money Success Toolkit. It's a free download that includes the exact templates I use to manage my finances. So when you go to lauradadams.com, you can easily sign up for The Money Stack. And you can learn a lot more about me, my work. You can ask questions. And of course, sign up for The Money Stack when you visit lauradadams.com. Or you can leave a voice message with your question or comment by calling 302-364-0308. I'd love to feature your question on Finance Friday, which is our weekly Q&A bonus edition of the show. Okay, so let's talk about flood insurance. I think it's a common misconception that homeowners or renters insurance protects your home and your personal belongings from flood damage. Those policies protect you against water damage that comes from the sky, like after a rainstorm, you have a leaky roof. But they don't cover damage that results from swelling groundwater, nor would they cover damage from something like a sewer that would back up into your home due to a rainstorm. Therefore, determining the cause of a flood or where the water originated is crucial in determining whether home or renter's insurance covers it. You must have a separate flood insurance policy for damage caused by groundwater, like water that comes from the ocean, a lake, a river, or rain runoff. However, flood insurance would not cover damage from a sewer that backs up into your home due to something like clogged pipes or from problems caused by tree roots in your yard. Flood insurance typically does not cover specific property and belongings, including currency, valuable papers, precious metals, cars or other motorized vehicles, or belongings in a basement or your landscaping. Nor does flood insurance reimburse financial losses if you have a covered business that gets flooded. However, having a business interruption policy could protect you if you're unable to earn revenue due to a natural disaster. So let's talk about who should purchase flood insurance. Well, if you buy a home in a high-risk flood zone as defined by FEMA, and you get a government-backed mortgage, like one guaranteed by the FHA or VA, in that case, you are required to get flood insurance. And even some conventional mortgage lenders may also require you to buy a flood policy, again, if you're in a high-risk area. However, if your lender doesn't require it, or let's say you don't have a mortgage, flood insurance is optional, even if you live in a high-risk area. What's so challenging about flood insurance is that many people believe that if they don't live right on the ocean or right on a lake or river, they're not in any damage of a flood, not in any danger. The problem is that floods often occur in areas designated as low to moderate risk on a flood map. According to FEMA, 32% of flood claims come from outside high-risk flood zones. While FEMA works to reflect every home's flood risk accurately, as you can imagine, it's a constantly evolving situation. In addition to rainfall, construction and other disasters in an area like wildfires and droughts can certainly alter an area's flood risks. Any area that receives heavy rainfall, snowfall, or has broken water mains can experience isolated and unpredictable flooding. So if you take anything from this podcast, it's that floods can happen anywhere. According to the Insurance Information Institute, only about 4% of Americans have flood insurance. In 2024, you probably remember Hurricane Helene. It damaged an estimated 300 homes in Buncombe County, North Carolina, where fewer than 1% of the homes and businesses had flood insurance. According to FEMA, 1 inch of water in a home can cause up to $25,000 in damage. Now, that actually seems like a pretty low and conservative estimate to me, as replacing floor covering alone could cost that much. Just think about the damage that a flood would cause to your appliances, furniture, drywall, and other items after being bathed in fresh or even salt water for days or weeks. Additionally, there's the cost of cleaning up any debris and mold caused by moisture in a home. Many people mistakenly assume that they'll get disaster assistance after a flood. Federal help is only available when the president declares a disaster area, and most floods don't get assistance. Plus, when federal help comes, it's in the form of a loan that you have to repay plus interest. So that federal disaster assistance is only meant to kickstart recovery in an area, not to pay for it. So if you want to get flood insurance, how do you do it? Well, in general, flood insurance must be purchased through a separate policy, as I mentioned, and it's typically offered by the National Flood Insurance Program, which FEMA manages. However, you can only get a National Flood Insurance Program policy if you live in an area that participates in the program. And the program simply requires communities to follow guidelines that reduce residents' flood risk. And most communities do participate, but it's possible that the area that you live in doesn't, so you want to check. If you live in an area that does not participate in the NFIP, or you need more coverage than what they offer, some private insurers do offer flood insurance. Now, you want to note that there's typically a 30-day waiting period for flood insurance to take effect after buying it. So you've got to get it before a big rainstorm is bearing down on you. NFIP policies offer up to $250,000 of building coverage and up to $100,000 for content, so that's your personal belongings. However, some private flood policies offer higher limits and broader coverage. Building coverage protects your home's structure and the things like your utilities, your electrical, your plumbing, your appliances, flooring, cabinets, walls, and even detached garages. Contents coverage protects items like your clothing, furnishings, electronics, curtains, and artwork. You can purchase those policies together or even separately. So if you're a renter, you could just purchase contents coverage. And each policy has its own deductible. You can visit floodsmart.gov to learn more about your risk and to get a rate quote. You can also buy coverage through an insurance broker. The cost of flood insurance varies, particularly if you get private insurance with higher coverage limits. But in general, it's affected by your home's age, construction, distance to water, elevation, and the policy deductible you choose. Floodsmart.gov offers an easy-to-use quote tool, and when I entered information for my home at the highest coverage amounts, it provided me with 4 deductible options ranging from about $1,400 up to $1,600 per year, and that was actually less than I expected. But as always, I recommend getting multiple quotes from the NFIP at floodsmart.gov and maybe from private insurers so you can compare the benefits and costs of flood insurance. Floodsmart.gov has a lot of great resources where you can figure out your risk of flood, but you can also discuss it with a local insurance broker if you really are unsure whether you need a flood policy or not. I hope this has been helpful as we see all this flooding in the news and, probably are going to have to expect more flooding coming in the future. That's all for now. I'll talk to you soon. Until then, here's to living a richer life. Money Girl is a quick and dirty tips podcast, and we've got a great team that works on the show. Steve Rickyberg audio engineers the podcast. Holly Hutchins is our director of podcast. Morgan Christensen is our advertising operations specialist. And Nathaniel Hoops is our marketing contractor.